We're good to go. Okay. So, what were we talking about before this? We were talking about.
Oh yeah, just the start of the first fight here.
Okay. And then, no, before that, we were talking about
Oh yeah,
something with improvement.
yeah, like what how do I think how I would improve?
Could you elaborate
And
just very briefly the 2 points that
yeah,
you made? Yeah.
yeah. The first point is that so you're just always practicing, so you practice over and over.
Mhm.
But the second point is having someone better than you look at what you're doing and give you feedback, and then you implement that feedback in your
Mm.
process.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I have two questions for you, and then we can kind of expand on that topic
Hmm.
once we kind of delve into that. But the first question is if there's someone that's better at implementing their time a lot more efficiently compared to the person who's dumping in sheer amounts of time, who would you think
Hmm.
would win at what point? So let's say like a lumberjack who keeps chopping trees for 10,000 hours versus the individual who's
Yeah.
very good at chopping trees for, let's say, I don't know, 100 hours. Who would you think
Hmm.
would taper each other out at what point?
Are you saying uh, like if somebody just implements one and not two?
Well, I wouldn't make it that
Um,
complex. In just terms of like
uh,
improving. So if someone's dumping in a sheer amount of time, right? Maybe
yeah,
not as
yeah, yeah, yeah,
efficiently. So let's say like
yeah,
10,000 hours into Apex. Versus the
yeah,
individual who's a lot more efficient at it, has a good mindset, is pretty talented at gaming, whatever you want to call it,
yeah,
and they dedicate 100 hours. Who would you think would win? And at what point would you think the other party would win over the other?
yeah. I mean, I think that yeah, like so everybody obviously starts at different levels,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like somebody can start at a certain level, play only 100 hours, and reach platinum, whereas another guy might start at a much lower level and reach platinum after like 500 hours,
Right.
right? So I guess it doesn't honestly like it's the person who just goes longer and more consistently over time.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, there is the danger of just going long and not like focusing on what you're doing wrong because you'll making the same mistakes, and in that case you may never, I mean, very 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 slowly, so it'll take a lot longer
Right.
than it could. Yeah.
So
But
let
yeah, in
me.
general, I think the more time you put like
Mhm.
over someone else, even if the other person is talented, if they don't put enough time, you're always gonna like outperform them at some point.
I agree. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I try and reframe this in a specific way. So the example I
Hmm.
usually give is imagine there's like a brick wall, right? So you can
Hmm.
either choose to punch the brick wall over and over and over again until it breaks, or you can find a
Hmm.
way to break that brick wall in one shot, right? So maybe you find a
Yeah.
certain weak point where there's some like liability in the structure of the wall. Maybe you know
Hmm.
something about the wall that makes it easier to break, so maybe pouring some water over it, like some random shenanigan, right?
Hmm.
If you look at it that way, then a lot of things starts to kind of fall into place because then you realize, okay, instead of just dumping in 10,000 hours into Apex, right? Which is still it's
Hmm.
encouraged, like you dump in a lot more hours to kind of discipline yourself to learn more opportunities, right? Because more time
Hmm.
equals more opportunities to learn. But it doesn't directly correlate to you breaking that wall per se, right? Because you could punch that wall
Yeah.
for who knows how long, right? But there's no guarantee
Hmm.
you'll actually break the wall. Sure, eventually you'll break it, but you have no idea when, right? Versus the individual
Yeah.
who knows how to break that wall. He knows a specific method of breaking that wall, and he comes into it very confidently. The only risk he runs is, can I break this in one hit, right? Because now he's not
Hmm.
worried about, am I going to break this after 10,000 hits? He's worried about,
Hmm.
can I break this in one hit? That's where the
Yeah.
difference between those two parties lie. And I think a lot of people tend to over exaggerate or over exemplify the actual value of hours into like
Yeah.
actually improving at certain things. So in this example being Apex, right?
Yeah.
So you'll see that example all the time in Apex, like especially in competitive scenes, where you'll see the person with like 10,000 hours. I could use myself as an example, right? Where I have years
Hmm.
of experience in FPS games, and I'll just get beaten by some 16-year-old kid who's dumped in like 20 hours into the game because
Hmm.
he has a very good mindset for learning. And I fell into a lot of
Yeah.
loopholes and a lot of noob traps when it comes to learning the game, right? So that's why I have the
Hmm.
experience that I do. So it's hard to conceptualize that at first until you see it for yourself, but just trust me when I say that you should work on certain things that help you foundationally in terms of improving, such as like
Hmm.
mindset, the way you approach building healthy habits, the way you approach building breaking bad habits and whatnot, and just trust the process, right?
Hmm.
So the second question I have for you was related to the whole like looking to someone who's more experienced or someone who has that better level of gameplay or whatever you want to call it for
Hmm.
advice, right? To give you a
Yep.
kind of direction. So what
Hmm.
happens when you don't have that direction? You don't have that person to go to after all that.
Well, I think the issue is that you have a lot of blind spots. I mean, you don't know what you don't know, right?
Mhm.
And so, like, it's really hard to self-assess a lot of times, like what you're doing wrong, especially when there's so many variables, and it's hard to, especially in like a complex game like Apex. It's hard to pick out what was the relevant, like the main issue in your play, I guess.
Yeah.
But someone more experienced can easily identify.
So I don't disagree with that, but what I want to know is your perspective on what the individual should do if, let's say, they don't have the functional support to look towards that
Yeah.
upper level
Um,
help.
yeah. So in my experience, it's just to experiment. Like,
Hmm.
and I notice like good players do this a lot. Like, or they like just experiment. Like, okay, just have a theory about what might be going wrong. And
Okay.
then if like based on that theory, try to change your play. Like if the theory is, well, I'm not taking enough cover. Now in your all in like your next 10 games, all you do is like take cover and shoot from cover and move from cover to cover and see if like that realistically improves your performance, like your kills, at least the number of kills, and then you also have the metric on what constitutes that improvement. Like, is it the number? Are you getting more kills? Are you placing higher? Are you doing both? Are you getting the most damage? Stuff like that.
Mm.
Um, and then
Okay.
if that doesn't work, then try to come up with a different. Yeah, keep experimenting. Eventually, like you come up with all these theories, and eventually one of them will make a difference, right? Because you're not an idiot. You'll eventually like come up with a
Mm.
theory that might actually be the problem.
So
And then yeah.
that's actually quite interesting because it feels like to me that you understand the road of how you should be improving, or
Mhm.
like the self improvement journey, but you don't understand the functioning parts of it. If that makes sense. So it's like
Yeah,
very
like.
disjointed points of knowledge, and it's pretty
Mhm.
interesting to see. Um,
Mhm.
but the way I look at it is, it seems to me that you understand that what you need and like the how to get the needs right, but you
Mhm.
just don't understand how to build the parts to get the fuller picture. So I'll kind of paint out some of the pictures for you. So when it comes to like looking at upper level support, you should be looking at it as an opportunity for growth rather than something that is a necessity, right? Like you don't look to it as like, oh, I need this to kind of get to the next level. You look at it as almost like a an adrenaline shot to whatever your existing gameplay or uh, growth path is for the moment. So if you're already on a good track to improving at the game, then you look to coaches and you go, oh, hey, can you help me boost that to the next level? And you go, okay, we'll help you out
Mhm.
with that. Another thing that coaches can help with, or like upper level support can help with, is breaking those bottom level like bad habits that are more foundational to the individual that they might not be able to do by themselves. But when it comes to actually like functioning after that, is completely
Mhm.
dependent on the player themselves. So what the coaches tend to try and strive to do is we try and strive to like build your structure and how you improve so you can carry yourself throughout your journey of improving in Apex without our help in the future, right? Which seems kind of
Mhm.
oxymoron because it's like we're making it so you don't need us. And it's like, well, yeah, that's the point, right? Like our job is to help
Mhm.
you. So the goal right now is we want to make sure that you understand how you can carry yourself in terms of developing your mindset. And it seems to me that there are two, actually, the biggest thing that I noticed is the way you look at correlation. Um, so, what do you think, without even me telling you, the problem is with how you correlate certain things?
Sorry, yeah, I missed the everything you said before correlation because like everything was cut off.
Oh, no problem. I believe I said so. It seems like the biggest issue that I see from you is the act of correlating things, right? So how you correlate things.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
So without even me telling you what you think the problem is, or what I think the problem is, what do you think the problem is with your aspect of correlating things?
Correlating like what I'm doing to why I'm losing.
That could be one of the examples. What else do you think, like maybe problems of how you're correlating things? Like if you're self-reflecting and asking yourself these questions.
I guess yeah. What I don't know what I'm doing wrong that's losing me the fight. Or at least I can't correlate those variables. I guess the other one is like what I'm doing right. That's
Hmm.
um that sometimes like what I'm doing right that might be helping me. So I don't see that. I guess.
So if you can't see that, how do you think you develop the insight to see that?
That's a good question. I don't know. I guess if you have a coach, like they'll point it out, but I guess that doesn't necessarily teach you how to recognize it.
Exactly, right? So it becomes a
Yeah,
pickle,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure. Uh, I guess it goes back to what I said before, where it's like, okay, here's a theory of why I think I'm winning or doing well here. Here's a theory of why I'm doing
Mm.
like bad. Like, for example, if you win a fight, it's like, okay, well, what happened? What did I do that made me win this fight? I guess. Um,
So, okay.
yeah.
So let's say your theory is wrong, right? But the way you're going
Mhm.
about the theory was wrong. So the act of creating a theory and like kind of theorizing things, right? Let's say that's good
Mhm.
practice. So how could you optimize that?
Mhm. Hmm. Like optimize coming up with the theory or working on improving it given a theory.
Well, it's up to you, right? So how
Yeah,
would
yeah.
you
Yeah, I mean, I guess
optimize that
that's the
as well?
problem. I have the issue is like because there's so many games and there's so many variables, it's hard for me to come up with like a consistent theory of why I'm losing.
Mm.
Like I'll see, like I can't see. I guess what the issue is that for me, there's so many variables and things going on. Like it's hard for me to identify a pattern across all the games that I play.
Let's try something. Let's simplify the process a bit. So rather than trying to think
Mm-hmm.
of theorize and then test, let's do something very simple that you can do very easily. Let's start by asking a question, right? So let's look at this fight, right? Like we can use this fight as an example. So let
Yeah.
me go over this fight. It starts at
Mm-hmm.
5:30, right? I believe you said.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll take a look at this fight, and then you
Do you
tell
want to share
me.
your screen
Oh
or
shit! I
yeah,
apologize.
yeah. No, it's all good.
I'm like just talking to myself, just solving my
Yeah.
own problems. So there you go. Thank you, thank you. Okay, you able to see it?
Not yet. Let me see.
I can restart it
Still
if
a
you can't
yellow
see it.
screen. I still only see your avatar.
Okay, okay. Um, is it working out?
Nope. Still see just your avatar.
Uh, let's give it a bit then.
Okay. Or I could try sharing mine, but then you won't be able to control it.
Right, yeah. Let me try rejoining the call. Give me a
Okay.
second. Is it all good?
No, I still see your avatar. Oh
Really?
wait, sorry. I see. Oh, I had to like click off. I have to click on your
No
avatar.
problem.
And yeah, my bad. Sorry about that.
No,
Okay.
no, you're
Yeah, yeah, I
good.
see it now.
Okay, okay, good. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna take a look at this fight, and then I
Mm-hmm.
want you to just look at the fight as a whole and just ask yourself
Mm-hmm.
questions. Just think out loud, and I can kind of direct you in certain ways
Okay.
based on what I think you're going or where you're going.
Yeah, so I hear them now. So I'm like uh looking for. I'm trying to figure out where the footsteps are coming from when they're coming.
Mhm.
And so I'm taking cover. I'm watching, and then I see him, and then I start firing. And then I try to. What I do here is like, okay, I gotta create some space here because if they run up on that side, there's too many angles they got on that wall. But then I die here because they ran up way too fast and they got an angle of me. Like I didn't expect them to flank me that fast. So I
Right.
didn't see that lifeline come all the way up, past the wall, behind me, even behind where I grappled.
Mhm. Okay, so what would be the first question you would ask yourself here? Just instinctually, what would you ask yourself?
Um, I guess. The first question.
It doesn't have to be correct.
You mean
The whole
like
point
like
is
the
just
game or like in general, like for this particular fight? Like I guess the
for
first
this
question is
particular fight.
yeah, where are all of the enemies right now,
Okay,
and what
that's
are
a
they
good starting
doing?
point. Okay,
Yeah,
so how would you answer that?
I would say I don't know. I only know where one of them is,
Mhm.
and so in order for me to like have more time to figure this out. Let me create more space by falling back and seeing,
Mhm.
you know, because the wall is kind of blocking my view of like the front. So and it's kind of exposing me. So let me fall back, try to get a wider view and see like where the other two teammates are.
Yeah. Are these all just
Yeah.
compilations of fights?
Yeah. No, it's the whole games. But
Oh, okay. Oh, you cut
yeah,
them out. Okay, I see. I see. I feel like this fight's a
yeah,
bad example. Do you have another fight that we can
yeah,
look at?
yeah. Plenty. Yeah. I was trying to get chapters working in YouTube, but I didn't figure it out. That would have been useful. But let's see. Yeah, here's a fight.
Yeah, we can make it check this out. See if it's good or not.
Yeah.
I've never seen that
I don't
either.
get any
Still.
audio from this video, but I guess not.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't screen
Okay. Yeah,
share
that's
the
okay.
audio for display, but if needed, I can do it later. Once we feel like we need to review it. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's condense this fight down a bit because I feel like if we watch any more, it's gonna get too complicated.
Yeah.
Okay. So starting from here,
Hmm.
I just wanted to review all this, just absorb all of
Yep.
it. And then from here. Okay, so what's the first question you would ask yourself?
Um, I guess where are the enemies and what are they doing?
Okay, we can start from there. So how would you answer
Yeah.
that?
I would say, well, the one I was fighting is probably, um, yeah, I don't know. Like at that point, like I turned my back and I was at that mode. At that point, I was like, okay, well, one of our teammates is gone. Like I have no shields. I'm gonna fall way back, try to reset, and try to maybe come around and get it back. Like I'm likely my teammate. They're gonna finish my teammate.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna come around, try to regroup with my second teammate, and get a banner and run. Like I wasn't even trying to fight at that point.
Well, let's simplify the process a bit. So
Hmm.
for every question that you ask yourself, I want you to present a simple constructive answer for that specific
Hmm.
question. And then from there, I want you to
Hmm.
optimize that initial question and see if there's any room for optimizing it. And if there's not, I want you to ask a question streaming from that question. So if I
Okay.
visualize it, imagine there's like question one, and
Hmm.
then build a constructive answer one, right? And
Hmm.
if you feel like there's no room to optimize this into, I don't know, like a super question one, then what you can do instead is you can string this into question two. And this should
Hmm.
be stringing from question one. So,
Hmm.
question one, you ask yourself, where's the enemy? What's a simple constructive answer towards where's the enemy in this situation?
I guess listen to where the shots are coming from,
Sure,
or the
that could work.
footsteps.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
could work.
Okay.
What other methods can you use to figure out that question for yourself?
Um. Where my teammate died, presumably.
Yeah. So, what is that as a generalization? You using your audio, seeing where the enemies kill your teammates.
Yeah. I guess just environmental cues.
Yeah. So the simple term could be like game sense, right? Utilizing your game
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Hmm.
Can you optimize question one?
Yeah. How do I improve my game sense?
Okay. Yeah, that's a completely
Yeah.
different direction I was expecting, but that works. Yeah. So
Yeah.
how do you answer that question?
Yeah. That's a good. I don't know. Like I don't know how to do that. Like I even have an idea of how to do that,
We'll
other
just
than
throw a
just
random
keep
idea
playing.
out there, right? So
Yeah.
what components make up game
Okay.
sense, right?
So one. Yeah. One. Oh, okay. So if you're talking about components, it could be.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So where, like you said, where are the enemies? Where are my teammates? Um. Where's the cover? What are the routes through the POI?
Yeah.
What are my abilities? What abilities do I have right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So everything starts to kind of make sense, right? So while the idea of game sense is kind of overwhelming because it's a generalization, the key components start to make a lot more sense when you kind of like dissect them and like focus a
Yeah,
little
that's
bit on
true.
them, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what's one big component of game sense that you think would benefit the most from? And you can
Like
list multiple.
understanding. Yeah, I guess for me, it's always not knowing where the enemies are or understanding what they might do next.
Okay, so is that a generalization or is that a component, do you think?
Where the enemies are. Yeah, it's actually a bit of a generalization, I
Yeah,
guess,
yeah.
because you could probably make it more specific.
So how do you make them more
Uh,
specific? What components go into it?
of where the enemies are. I guess the first question is where they could realistically be. I guess I don't know.
Okay,
Like if they just kill my teammate, they're clearly in the building. They at least they could. They're realistically they have to be around in and around the building that she died in
right.
or he died in.
So
Yeah.
if you're trying to figure out where the enemy is, right, and
Hmm.
that is a generalization of a concept, and the components that go into it, you can't really pin it down because you have the idea of it, but you don't know how to do like conceptualize it yet.
Hmm.
Because while you understand the idea, you don't understand the components to it. So I really want you to think
Hmm.
about it and see like, okay, let's play simulations or scenarios in your head where you're missing components to like just throw in random components. It doesn't even have to correlate. Just like, what if I didn't have this? What if I did have this? Would it make it easier to spot where the
Mm.
enemy is? And then kind of
Right.
simulate through
Right.
those.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah. So you can
Yeah,
take
that
your
makes
time,
sense.
just think through it for a bit.
Well, I mean, obviously, if I had a wall hack, I could see where they all are. So
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's
yeah.
actually a really good perspective. So that's
Oh.
actually funny because do you know a player named Nothing in CS:GO?
No, I don't really follow CS:GO, so
So
I'm not.
there,
I'm not
yeah,
like.
so there was a player who, when he was around 13 or 14, before he was
Hmm.
like a professional player, he used
Hmm.
wall hacks to learn and develop his game sense. Like no joke.
Mm.
I'm not encouraging you to do this, but I'm just giving you an example
Well, I mean, you could use a
of
wall hack character, presumably, right?
yeah. Now you're thinking, right?
I
So
see. So, like okay. So, I think I see where you're going, which is that
right,
with wall hacks, you can kind of identify like how enemies are moving and what they're doing at any particular time in a fight.
right, yeah. So you can
Whereas,
fill in kind of the
yes,
missing
okay,
holes that you might be missing. But
yeah, 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 yeah.
here's the important part. While having those wall hacks is nice, it doesn't solve everything, right? Because what happens when you strip that away from you? You don't know what to do, right? So how could you
Yeah,
learn
yeah.
from the wall hacks, and why are you learning from the wall hacks?
Yeah, so you use the wall hacks to be like, okay, not necessarily to like win a fight, but like, okay, I want like, I'm trying to figure out where they would be at this point,
Mm-hmm.
in a fight, and so I'm just gonna use it now just to see where where they'll be.
And
So
then
I
what does
guess,
that teach you?
yeah, it kind of teaches you the patterns of how the enemies move
Mm,
in the fight.
yeah. So what? So patterns in general in Apex is pretty like random, right?
Hmm.
Because every player is different. Every player has different values, right? But
Hmm.
what's a common thread that most people will commonly follow that creates that pattern, no matter who it is?
I mean, I guess they're always in cover for the most part. If like they knock somebody, they're usually pushing.
Okay, so what is cover? Like, why is cover so important to these people?
Because it reduces the area that they can be hit from.
Right. So it's a valuable play, right? It's a valuable
Hmm.
key thing. So why is
Yeah.
value so important?
Because it gives you an advantage in a fight. I
Exactly.
guess I
So
just yeah.
yeah. So now you're unraveling the workings of the game, right? So now we
Hmm.
just identified why people want something like cover, right? As an example,
Hmm.
which also means that it's a common thread and a common trend that most people do, like a pattern. But
Hmm.
that pattern also might exist because it's a valuable thing to do, right? So you understand
Hmm.
that the value comes from having an advantage over others, right? So now I'm
Yes.
gonna present to you something crazy. This is something I present to everyone, and their minds are blown. Usually,
Hmm.
it might not be for you, but whatever. The game works in a tug of war of advantages and disadvantages, right?
Hmm.
So you have less disadvantages. So imagine like there's like a scale, right? So a balancing
Hmm.
scale, and you're on this spectrum, and there's someone on this side. So the more advantages you have, the more it'll go
Mm.
down, right? The more weight you'll have versus the guy who has
Mm-hmm.
one advantage, right? And it could also
Right.
work in the inverse. So let's say they have more disadvantages. So these
Mm-hmm.
disadvantages will make it go more and more upwards, right?
Mm.
So it's this infinite like seesaw battle of who can stack more advantages while mitigating their disadvantages the most in a fight, and seeing how that can stack up against the odds of the other player or the other team,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how you kind of figure out the inner workings of the game without even knowing the enemy person's intentions. So you're not really trying. Your goal isn't trying to read the enemy person's mind per se,
Mm.
but you're trying to see the cheese on the ground that they're chasing after, right? So you put a cheese on a mousetrap, you know exactly where that mouse is going, right?
Mm.
So you're not predicting and reading the mind of the mouse. You're baiting them into that trap, or you see what the value is and you see where they want to go, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So kind of
Right.
circling back to the whole question of how do you know where your enemies are? What do you think the first question or answer to that is?
I mean, I guess what would give them the most advantage?
Exactly. So the most value in
Yeah.
their play, right?
Yeah.
Now, is it guaranteed like 100% of the time?
No, but I guess over time, statistically, they will be there, and so you end up just doing better overall.
Right. But what could you do with that concept as well? Because the enemy can use it, but what can you do with
Oh,
it?
you could like kind of, I guess you can use their expectation as an advantage by
Yeah, that's like the
doing the
next
opposite
level.
of their
Yeah.
expectation. Yeah.
Yeah. But you
Yeah.
can also
Yeah.
take care of the advantages as well, right? Like you can take advantage of
Mhm.
it and then create your own advantage and tip the scale, right?
Mhm.
So now you're kind of seeing the game differently. So now I want you to kind of go back on this fight. So I'm going to replay it. And I want you to tell me what you would have done differently, knowing the ideas of advantages and disadvantages. And just throw random ideas out there. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Okay, let's see. I guess here I am. So here, what I was trying to do is, okay, so I'm at a disadvantage because I just lost shields.
hmm
So I'm trying to gain an advantage by getting my shields back, I guess.
Okay, so let's mark that. So we'll do
Yeah,
advantages and disadvantages, right? So right
but
now,
it takes
we're at
yeah, yeah,
okay.
and also it takes more. It takes time that I'm out of the fight.
Yeah.
So I guess that's part of the disadvantage too. Yeah.
Also, let's keep track of the enemies as well. So if the enemies have a counter as well, so we'll do a smaller one down here. How many do the enemy have right now?
Well, they have one because they almost cracked me.
Right. But
Yeah.
it doesn't always work in the inverse, right? Just because you have one disadvantage doesn't mean they have one advantage, right? So what would give them
Yeah.
an advantage here in this situation?
Well, I have to stop. So if I don't like, so the problem is if I don't heal up, they can. I'm a weaker state, so if they have more shields,
Yeah.
I'll die, and then I'll be at 3v2.
So shields,
Yep.
yeah.
And
What
then,
else do they have in terms of it?
I guess they've just created like they've removed me from the fight for like a couple of seconds,
hmm
so they can use that to reposition or get more because I'm not watching an angle.
Yeah.
They could just move up, or they can just push outright in that time.
So we'll put it as pressure and then positioning.
Mhm.
So how does it look for you right now? Really bad.
Yeah,
right?
not very good. Yeah.
yeah. So let's keep track of it as we keep going in.
Yeah, and that's why I tried to reduce the time disadvantage
hmm
by only shielding up a little bit. So it's like shield up a little bit, and then but like at the cost of a little bit of shield, gain a little bit more time, I guess, or reduce the
Yeah.
time I'm out.
Okay, so let's say we do that, right? Then that would be like, let's say, half of a disadvantage, right? Not the full.
Mhm. Mhm.
Full, like, cut it off right there.
Yeah.
But that's still not enough because while you cut that disadvantage in half, you're not really doing anything with it, right?
Yeah.
So
I
how
just
do you
realized
create
that,
an
yeah.
advantage out of it?
Yeah, I would have to basically maybe use this time to get an advantage, like to get on height
Yeah,
or to
yeah.
flank. Yeah, in some way.
So positioning, right? So you're kind of playing their game. Now you're trying to win back those numbers, right?
hmm
So if you can get back this number right here, right? This number right here, then that means they lose this. And now they're at two
Yeah.
advantages, while you have one full advantage, while half of a disadvantage. Those odds aren't bad. You're only down by like 40% or whatever, right? Which is pretty good odds for you. But sadly, that's not the case because, I mean, we can't change the past. It is what it is. So let's keep watching this and you keep track of everything. You tell me when
Yeah,
it's
so now I'm trying to get a flank somewhere. Or, yeah, but I didn't realize that this guy was here.
Mhm.
So it was just a matter of like not. I didn't hear him till it was too late. So I was like,
Okay.
I was looking like I thought that they might be on the other side of the building, but there was one guy to my right.
Right. So who has the advantages and disadvantages here in this fight, do you think?
Right now, I think he does because he has the head glitch on the stairs,
Mm-hmm.
and also, I think the Eva 8 is bad at this range.
Okay.
I mean,
So
it's
I would
okay.
actually
So the
argue that
spread
this is
is,
fine. Yeah.
yeah.
So let's say in your hypothetical situation, if she's able to abuse this head glitch, she would theoretically have this advantage, right?
hmm
What if I told you it's not really an advantage and it's not really a head glitch? How would this turn into a non-head glitch?
If I just pushed up, or like I was on height, I guess.
One of those aspects, yeah, but it would take a lot more time, right? And this individual will
hmm
react to that.
hmm
If you push up, you're kind of evening the playing field, and nobody really
Right.
has an advantage, right?
Or I could use the cover on the right.
Ah, right. But this individual also did this. So now what would you do?
I have to use the cover on the left.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's the
Yeah.
exact same solution, but just in a different
hmm
situation, right? Because what
Yeah.
happens when you go over here? This individual can't push up for free because you'll just peek
hmm
out and beam them. They can't back up because you'll just push them if they're backing up.
Mm.
You have full control of the situation by just moving 2 feet to your left. That is how insane positioning works in this game.
Mm.
Now we'll keep going in. You do actually push to the right, but you get,
Yeah, I didn't.
Maggie Q.
I did. Yeah, again, that was like I didn't notice that disadvantage at that until I
Yeah,
actually got
exactly.
damaged by it.
Now who's an advantage here?
I think he is because now I'm like faced away from him and I'm out of cover.
Right.
I,
So what
I yeah,
happens if
now
he pushes you?
yeah, I'll die. And I lost. He cracked me too. So
Right. What happens if you push
yeah.
him?
Oh, I'm definitely gonna die because he has
Right.
the health advantage.
So he has control over the situation. So now
hmm
we're in a situation where we're two disadvantages and four advantages on the enemy team. Right.
hmm
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Let's see how you get in this situation.
So now I just run. I heal
Yeah.
swap and run.
So at this point, can you turn it?
No.
Why
You mean
is
turn
that?
around?
Like turn
Oh,
the
because
situation around.
I already have a health disadvantage.
hmm
Um, and I could. I mean, maybe if I turned around and took cover by the doorway,
Mm.
um, then if he tries to push up, he's exposed and I have cover, and I can peek in and out.
So even if this individual, let's say, whiffs half of his mag, right? Who would still win
Mhm.
this fight, even if you land every single shot?
He would,
And why is that?
because he has the health advantage.
Exactly. So even though yes, his positioning is better, and yes, it would
hmm
normally turn a fight, because you have that one disadvantage. So from 1 to 2, because you have two, and that second one happens to be your health disadvantage, you cannot turn this fight because the odds are simply just turned against you, right?
Yeah.
So how would you go about turning the situation in a way where they lose all their advantages, you get rid of all your disadvantages, and you gain your own advantages?
Mm.
So
Yeah, that'd be a
wiping this
question.
clean slate, just everything gone. How would you do that?
I mean, I guess what I would kind of did was just run all the way back.
Mhm.
Use my grapple since my advantage is I can like move faster than he can.
Right.
Well, I mean, he has the ball, but like the grapple, I can get height and whatever. So yeah, I could use the grapple to fall all the way back, um, and then heal up again.
What was that word you're about
So
to say?
reset,
Earlier? Yeah. So what does that
yeah,
word mean?
this means to reset your health and your positioning, I guess.
Yeah, and it could also mean what?
Resetting your disadvantages, yeah.
Exactly. Everything's gone. Because you
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
reset your positioning,
Mm.
your health, everything's gone. everything's reset.
Mm.
So the
Mhm.
scale has just simply reset because you ran away, you survived, and you're ready to turn it back. So there will be
Yeah.
residual advantages they'll have, right? Like maybe numbers up because your teammates die while you reset, random things like that. But those
Mhm.
are better odds than you being in a shittier situation where they have 4 advantages, you have 2 disadvantages with no advantages, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So in theory, this play that you did was actually good in hindsight, right?
Mhm.
But in the moment, it's hard to have that perspective and know what to do
Yeah.
here, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, at
what
this
are you
point, I
choosing
was
to do?
completely lost. Yeah, yeah. Also, I guess the other issue is that when I grappled off of height.
Yeah, exactly. Which means they
So
still have
that,
what?
yeah,
Yeah.
a disadvantage.
Yeah, so you're at a disadvantage, you have a position in your round, right?
Yeah, so that was the first mistake, I guess, in trying to
Yeah.
reset.
So now I want you to
And,
see something real quick.
mhm,
Now I want you to look at every single situation where we marked advantage, disadvantage, all those moments, and
mhm,
see it as its own little fight. Or its own little like
mhm,
mind problem. Puzzle solution.
mhm,
So I'll kind of break it down for you. Right here, its own little solution, puzzle solution. It's its own little
mhm,
fight, right? So
mhm,
we have one fight right here. Okay, we break it here. That one fight is over.
mhm,
We come over here. Here's the second fight. Here's the second fight. You're fighting for disadvantages and advantages, right?
mhm,
You break it up once you get this armor swap. Once you cross this point, you come across another situation.
mhm,
Another fight for advantages and disadvantages. This game
mhm,
works in this exact pattern where there's different
mhm,
breakage points of the tempo in the fight where you'll
mhm.
constantly be fighting for advantages and disadvantages, and it's just up to you whether you can grasp those moments and take advantage of them, right?
Right.
So now I want you to look at a different fight. So let's kind
Mhm,
of go to a different fight. And I want you to go with a fresh perspective and you give me your input of what you could do better and how you could tip the scales every single time and when you feel like those little fights happen in the fight itself.
okay.
The simple way of doing it is just tell me like, hey, stop right here. I think this is a little fight. This is how I would
Yeah,
gain the
yeah,
advantage.
yeah. Okay. Let me see. Find any
Let's see if
enemies
we can
here?
fight a fight. Seems like you don't fight for a while here.
There's a care package.
Is there another fight that you have on demand maybe?
Yeah, let me look through it here real quick.
Yeah. I'll skim through while you're looking for it as well. Oh, it seems like you found something. Okay.
Okay.
So again, just tell me when you want me to stop, and you just break
Yeah,
it down
so
for me.
if you stop right here, I guess the disadvantage here is that they have a bit of height and I'm out of cover. So
Okay,
they have an
so
advantage and I have a disadvantage.
we'll lay it out again for visual
Mhm.
purposes. Okay, so repeat one more time.
So they have height
Mhm.
on me, so that's an advantage, and I'm out of cover, so that's a disadvantage for me.
Okay. Could this theoretically be an advantage for you based on whether they know you're here or not?
Yeah, if they didn't know I'm here, it would be an advantage for me because if they're not looking at me, I can get free shots on them.
Exactly, and you can take positioning on them, right?
Hmm.
So yes, this is its own little fight. So we'll put, I don't know, in yellow we'll put F. So this is its own little fight. And then for these, what we'll do is we'll erase these because do they know you're here? No, right? I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, I think my teammate pinged it that they were there.
Okay, so we'll put it as
Oh, yeah.
advantage.
Hmm. At least I definitely heard them. That's why I'm moving up.
Mhm.
So if you stop here,
You want to
I would be an advantage because I'm in cover, and they if they come out of that door, they won't have any cover,
Mm. But would they
and
peek
they
out
may
if they're in
not
the
know
middle
where.
of the fight?
Oh yeah, I can't hear the audio. I don't know if they were in a fight or not.
Oh, well, yeah, they're in a fight. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Probably
yeah.
the pretty
Right. Yeah, yeah. If they're in a
disadvantage,
fight, then yeah, we could.
yeah.
Yeah. So the advantage is that they're not focusing on us; they're focusing on other teams. So we can, and they have their backs turned.
Mhm.
So we have a advantage if we move up. So the
Right.
cover may not matter in the right now.
Right. So it's still the
Yeah.
same exact advantage, but
Hmm.
this would theoretically be a second advantage if they did turn on you, right? But
Yeah.
would that also be an advantage or disadvantage for them if they turned on you?
Uh, I Well, I don't. For if they're fighting another team and they turn around on us, I guess it'd be a disadvantage for us
Mhm.
because now they, they might position to fight us, and so our advantage. Well, the fact that they know we're there, and the fact that they could take better cover. I guess it wouldn't necessarily be an advantage for us. I mean, I guess it wouldn't be a. Yeah, I guess the advantage would have a loss, but I don't think there's a disadvantage. It would be back
Mm.
to even. Yeah.
So if they're fighting someone and they turn on you,
Yeah.
how could you turn that into your own advantage? Do you think?
We could just wait until the team that they were fighting pushes into them, and then
Who's
it's an
saying they would
advantage.
though if they knew we're there?
So you're saying, who's saying what?
So okay, put yourself in their shoes, right? Let's say you're
Mhm.
fighting a team and then you turn around and you see another team pushing into 3P,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Would you continue fighting and push into the other team?
Yeah, no, you would probably run away.
Right.
Like, yeah,
And that's because a 3P is coming, right?
yeah.
So how could you turn that quote unquote advantage that they might have in the situation into your own advantage? Because every situation you
Is
can at
it?
least tweak it a
Yeah,
little to your own advantage. Sometimes
yeah.
even
I
do it.
mean, I mean, if you know that they're gonna run, uh, well, yeah, I don't know if they're running. I guess because they have to lose cover while they run, right?
Right. So so
So,
here's an easier simulation. Put yourself in their shoes and what would make that fight really difficult for you?
I mean, if both teams pushed us like got really aggressive really fast on us, I
Right.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So do they always have to push to make that fight difficult for you, do you think? If you're in their shoes? Like what would also make it difficult for you?
Um,
Because
there's no
remember,
way
you're in
they don't
there.
let you run. They don't let you run. I
Yeah, they
guess.
don't let
Like,
you run.
yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah.
how would they do that?
I guess they would position themselves so that if you tried to run, they would have line of sight on you.
Right, exactly. Because what's wrong with this area?
Oh, got it. Yeah, I don't have line of sight on them. Like if they decide to run,
Like right here.
they can
Yeah,
just jump off or get cover there, or run
exactly.
away
But if you're in
left.
their shoes, what would make it very
Yeah,
difficult to run away?
if I move to the left. Well, no, then they could run down where I'm here. Um,
It's
I
tough,
get
right?
on
Because
height.
now you're thinking
Yeah,
differently. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I can get on height, so I have an angle on both, whichever way they run.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
now you're talking about a theory. So you literally just took a concept out of thin air and made it your own, which is
Mm.
how reframing this whole thing works, right? You now start to
Mm-hmm.
dissect and draw
Mm.
things out of thin air. So remember how you're talking
Yeah.
about, oh, you don't have that perspective, right? Or you don't have
Yeah.
that vision. Now you're able to do
Yeah.
it. Why? Because you have that structure, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So now you're able to do this just on your own whim without even knowing what it is. So by
Mhm.
expanding your cone of LOS, right? So let's say you're up here, right? And you're this little
Mhm.
person over here. And if you expanded your cone of LOS so where you can see everything in this area, then no matter where they go, what happens? They get beamed, right?
Right.
And you don't always have to be on high ground to do this either. You could just take a different position where you see more of everything, right? So a good example of
Yeah.
that is this truck, right? Or this tree.
Mhm.
You're in the middle of all of this area right here. So what happens when you just see everything in the entire vicinity? Like this, right?
Mhm.
So if we kind of go
Right.
forward a bit, you can kind of visually see even better once you get closer. You see all those little positions, right? All in the middle,
Mhm.
where you can take position at, take cover, while also punishing them if they try to run away, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So you
So
yourself
like
don't
the
even have to
front.
put in any effort, and you could still
Mm.
win this fight by doing absolutely
Mm.
nothing.
You want to just push that real quick?
So we'll kind of play through this because I think they do push onto each other.
Mhm.
So you just tell me whenever you want to break it up,
Yeah.
and then whenever
Okay.
you
So
decide
stop
to
here. I guess.
Okay.
So if you stop here, I mean, I guess what we discussed earlier, I was not. So I didn't have a disadvantage, but I definitely didn't have an advantage
Mm-hmm.
because I wasn't positioned in a way that I would have the line of sight on them. like a good
Right.
line of sight on them.
But your
But
advantage came from them not knowing you were there, right?
yeah, exactly. And then here, I am. So my thinking was, yeah, I guess this was a bad theory that they were just going to stay there.
Right, exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know why. Like, I guess that's a kind of error in my thinking. I don't. I guess, yeah, I just assumed that what they're doing right now is how they're always going to be, but I don't think like what they might do
Exactly,
to gain
because
an advantage.
you're not
Yeah,
thinking
yeah,
about it.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, yeah. So that's why I'm just like spamming my grenades because I'm like, oh, they're over there. I'll just keep spamming my grenades over there and
Mhm.
hope that I hit something. Um, yeah, so I don't think. I mean, this could be advantage if they are over there and it does damage, but it's kind of like
Mhm.
I'm, it's like a toss up whether because I don't know that they're there. I'm just kind of leaving it to chance, I guess.
Yeah, so it's like a higher tension, tighter timing, little fight, as we call it, right?
Hmm.
So what would happen if you reveal your presence, which is what happened right here, right? So
Yeah,
what
right,
happens to
right.
the scale?
Now my advantage is gone because they
Hmm.
know we're here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But does other team get an advantage or a disadvantage? Do you think, or just nothing?
Yeah. They don't lose anything or
Okay.
gain anything.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So we're
I mean,
still
they're
even.
kind of
Yeah.
already at a disadvantage simply because they're getting attacked by two teams now, I guess.
Yeah. So they're feeling the pressure of being in a sandwich, right?
Yeah.
So we could put that as a disadvantage. Oh, wrong color. Okay. Let's play through it. And just tell me whenever to pause.
Okay, here, pause. So we're like hard pushing up
Mm-hmm.
because yeah, we're like, okay, so I guess our thinking was like, okay, we're third party, we can totally like just drop this team.
Right. Yeah.
Um, I don't think we thought beyond that, honestly. Uh,
Yes. Oh, I forgot
uh,
to put the markers up here too. So we're at two little fights. Yep.
yeah, and then also at this point, I do see a death box, so I'm like, okay, so at least one of them died, so it's even
Mhm.
more an advantage. So it's like a 3v2 at this point.
Yeah.
And they're also putting up a wall there, so it means that they're probably trying to prevent line of sight on from us.
Mhm.
So they're probably still there. Um, so yeah, so I guess they're all there. It's a 3v2, so we're all gonna push.
Okay. So
So we have
advantage
the
for
advantage.
you.
Yeah.
They still have the same
Mhm.
disadvantage.
Mhm.
How could you empower this advantage that you have, or strengthen it?
So I could get height
Mhm.
um on the rock, or I could flank on the left to get like another line of sight from my teammates because we're all in the same
Yeah.
area.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So now you
Um,
notice all the little intricacies in each advantage and
mhm,
disadvantage, right? So it's not
mhm.
just one value tick. Now there's
Yeah.
infinitely more into this. Now in this one advantage, you have your own little game. So now you're thinking about how to optimize this. So how do I make it so it's
Mhm,
even an advantage inside the advantage, right?
mhm,
That's how this game works. It's
mhm,
very
mhm.
deep and depth in terms of depth, but it's very simple by design. So you can kind of just go about it with the right idea, the right mindset, and you can kind of build these things just
Mhm,
out of thin air, as you were doing earlier, right? But
mhm.
it does benefit to kind of conceptualize some of these things and kind of break them down in your own time during VOD reviews, so you can kind of build that
Yeah,
better perspective for yourself. So when you encounter it again, you know, oh, I've seen that before. Like last time when I reviewed that one VOD, like I remember this.
yeah,
Okay, so we'll
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of play
yeah.
through it again.
I just realized
Yeah,
one.
so I do flank here.
Yeah.
But okay, so I have advantage here, but the disadvantage is if there's a third team coming, I'm like they have a big LOS on me because I'm out of cover.
Right.
So that's one
And
disadvantage.
remember that topic we talked about the value? So,
Hmm.
in terms of value, right? What value would exist here for another team to show up, right? Because they wouldn't just show up if there was no value, or shouldn't show up if there was no value, right?
Hmm.
So, what value is there if there was a fourth party coming to this fight? So, what value exists for that fourth party?
A value? I well, the value is that there is a lot of enemies outside of cover that are not that are distracted,
Wait, but do
and
they know that?
so Oh, the other another. Oh, I see. So yeah, the another party might not.
Yeah, exactly. But why would they want
Uh,
to show up and be that fourth party? What value or what reasoning would they have to come out and show up?
because they would be better positioned, right, than all the others. They at least they can get a better position.
Well, they don't know what your positioning is at the moment, right? Until they get
Mm.
to that site. So before they even arrive, right? What
Yeah.
value exists for them to want to show up in this place in the first place? And if you
I
have
mean,
a
it
little
would,
bit of trouble, just kind of put yourself in their shoes as well.
yeah. Well, they would be like, oh yeah, we don't know that they're there, so
Mhm.
that's kind of like the third party advantage, right? Like they don't,
Yeah.
we don't know that they're when they if or when are they going to run up.
Well, you just said it, right? A third
Yeah,
party, right? So why
yeah.
is a third party valuable to an individual?
Because generally, if the two teams are fighting, they're not at full health, and their positioning is not. Um, they're not positioned to fight you, but each other.
Exactly. So the value of a third party exists with the idea of them being in a disarray, right? So them bringing
Mm-hmm.
chaos, and
Mm-hmm.
you having the element of surprise, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that means that you have the decision to decide how the fight goes, right? Or hopefully how the
Mm-hmm.
fight goes. So
Got it.
before the fight, you even came to it, right? What are the chances that there are other people with the same line of thinking that you guys have that will show up for the same amount of value that you want?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty high,
Right.
especially in
So
this ring
yeah,
since it's already pretty small.
exactly. And then how do you think you can mitigate that? How do you think you can take advantage of that?
So yeah, I thought about this before. I guess if um you kind of bait that third party and then fall back and then force them like these two teams to fight and then come and then you kind of re-engage as the third party.
I like the idea, but is there a way you can control the tempo of that, or when they finish the fight, or how long they take?
Mm,
Like, could they finish this fight in 1 millisecond before you even react?
no.
Right, but could they also extend the fight to like an entire round of like a ring, for example?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so how much control do you actually have over that variable? Do you think?
Yeah, you don't. If they're fighting, you don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah, you can't really control it unless, yeah.
So how could you
Because
still
if
mitigate it without really controlling a variable that's out of your control?
you can mitigate it, sorry, what are we mitigating?
The
The chance.
third party, like taking advantage of the idea of like, oh, like the third party or like the fight acts as like a firelight
Yeah,
to a moth.
yeah. Like if they like to mitigate. Well, if we run away, then like they might be fighting, but we don't know like um. So the question. So I guess the issue is if we run away and a third party eventually comes, we don't know like we can't control that fight
Mm.
basically, right? So we don't get an advantage until. I mean, I guess like I was saying, you don't get an advantage until you're the third party again, right?
So let me try reframing this for you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's think of it in like an attack and defending situation, right? So let's say like you're, I don't know, just like a knight in an RPG, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you have two modes. You can attack or you can block with your shield, right?
Yeah.
So when you choose to attack, what are you exposed to?
Their attack.
Right. If you defend, what are you exposed to?
Um, you're not really exposed, right? Because you're defending, but you're not attacking, so you're not doing damage.
Right. So now let's say the enemy has the freedom of choice to do whatever they want, right? So reposition, do this, do that. So if you choose to attack, what could they do?
They could defend.
Okay. And if you defend, what could they do?
So they could attack, or they could, yeah, like you said, reposition.
Right. So now if you expand upon the defending and attacking idea, right? So now they have the ability to reposition, do this, do that. Now the game of rock, paper, scissors becomes a little bit more complicated, right? So now it's like they can gain little advantages here and there and make it so they win the entire fight without really having a strong attacking or defending advantage, right?
Got it.
So in a
Yeah, so
situation, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I think what you're saying is like in this situation, if we pull back and then another party comes in, we could try to influence the situation so one or the other wins the fight, I
Right, but what
guess.
if that third
Yeah,
party
yeah.
doesn't come?
Then we just kind of gave up. Then we just made
Exactly.
it harder. Yeah, we gave up KP, and now there's still another team on the map.
Exactly. So how do
Yeah.
you what like so now think in the broad scheme, everything. Apex. We're talking about Apex now, right? So we're
Mhm.
talking about rings, we're talking about loot, we're talking about your armor, we're talking about enemy positioning, everything.
Yeah.
What could you mitigate in terms of losses in this situation, as well as what could you control, as well as how can you gain advantages in a way where if there's another fourth party coming, how could you turn that to your own advantage, as well as mitigating your disadvantages?
Um. Oh, so yeah, if there's a fourth party. Okay, so I guess one way you could do it is like you could try to finish this fight very fast, and then
Yeah,
reset, and then loot this team because they have you'll have a loot advantage.
yeah, exactly.
Um.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that's one way, and then reposition and wait for the other party to come in because you know that they're going to hear us,
Mm-hmm.
and then you could take advantage of that because they're going to expect you to be fighting. But if you have positioning and they run out, then you have the advantage.
Exactly. So that's like attacking and defending, but this time you're attacking on steroids, right? So now you're taking
Yeah.
that attack idea and just going crazy with it. So even if they're
Mhm.
defending, you're just bashing the sword against the shield over and over and over, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
what's the other side of the coin to that, do you think?
You just you fall back. You don't try to push so hard. Get good positioning cover, and when the fourth party comes, you let those two fight, or at least you
Mm,
attack the fourth party. Um, yeah. So I guess you could just be more defensive. Let the fourth party come,
okay.
stay in a position that they can't fourth party you, so they're forced. So they end up fighting the other team, and so you become the third party again. I guess kind of like what I said before.
Right. So while the idea of like a steroided defense is good in
Hmm.
some situations, in this situation doesn't work too well. So while the idea of a steroided attack worked well in this situation, it might not
Hmm.
work in well in other situations, right? So what's an
Hmm.
evolved form of defending that could kind of help you out here? Or the example of defending that could help you out here? So like what's
Hmm.
another example of defending that's often used in like I don't know, just random terminology.
Hmm.
Counterattacking, right?
Counterattacking who? The third party?
Well, that's your interpretation of it, right? So, what do you think
Hmm.
you could do in terms of counterattacking, right? Like the evolved form of defending.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure because I would like counterattack would be okay if the third party shows up, then we focus on them.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
so
how
you
do you do
turn
that?
around. Yeah. You immediately, I guess. Um. If they.
Because you just turning around isn't an advantage, right? So, what's a
Yeah.
form
Yeah.
of like an evolved form of defending, aka counterattacking, that where you can maintain your advantages, even gain more,
Oh,
as well
I
as
guess
mitigating the
you
defenses.
you kind of move around to behind them.
Okay. So positioning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. To
So
reposition
into
behind
yeah.
them, so they're in the middle. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So if a fourth party comes, how could you mitigate the losses, even if you're in that position?
Yeah. You just reposition behind them.
But do you have the time to do that? And how do you notice that?
Well, in this case, probably not because um well, yeah, the ring is closing, I guess, and the ring is like really close to us.
Mhm.
Uh, so like we can't just we have to go to the ring. It's the final ring. So we definitely have to either finish this fight or run. Like we can't like just hit a fourth party and try to reposition. That would take too long.
Okay,
And
let
also, I don't even
me.
know if a fourth party would show up when the ring is closing like this. They might
Exactly.
just be
Oh, yeah, there
holding
you
the
go.
ring.
That's
Yeah,
one variable you can control, right? You're inside of the ring.
yeah,
So
yeah.
your knowledge of that, you can also mitigate the disadvantages with that knowledge, right?
Hmm.
So I'm gonna present you an example, right? So let's say there's three people here. This is like a high
Hmm.
ground, right? And everything kind of slopes down from here. And you're over here. Let's say you decide to position over here, and you're on the low ground, so it's kind of going upwards, and you're on this low ground. And you're positioning yourself in a way where these guys are looking at their own fight, and you can look at them in your own fight, right? But if a third party shows up behind you, for example, right, and they decide, oh, we're gonna shoot you guys, what could you do in terms of like preemptive ideas and like plays where you wouldn't be in this position where you're in between red and yellow?
Well, you can just run to the right, or down, I guess. So like you're not sandwiched anymore. Well, I guess
But then
kinda
you
are
lose
still.
that aggressiveness, right? You lose that pressure
Yeah,
on
yeah,
red.
yeah. I mean, or you just get really aggressive on red and push them and take their position.
Well, then that's just a full-on attack, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I guess if the other party's distracted, I guess you don't necessarily. You can just turn around and take the advantage on the third. Like you get aggressive on the third party.
Yeah, that's like one example of it. They're very busy, right? But let's say like
Yeah.
this fight is like kind of in a stalemate. Red's not really getting advantage on the other team. The other team's not really getting advantage on them. It's kind of a stalemate. They're also sandwiched by you guys, so they're kind of worried. And then a fourth party shows up behind you. What could you do preemptively? We're in a way where even if they show up, you're completely fine, unscathed, while also maintaining this pressure on red.
And you said you had a height advantage on them, or no?
You had low ground. So pretty much this
Oh, I
example, but more simplified.
If you have a low ground, I guess you could just take cover. I mean, I like you just kind of defend here. Yeah. I don't know.
So there's a player by the name Mondo. He's a Korean player, right?
Mhm.
And he is the god of contesting 3Ps, or also surviving 3Ps. And the way he does it is by he always has a preemptive plan in his head. Do you want to know what that is? It's always having an escape plan. So if you always had an escape plan, every fight you took, every 3P you engaged in, what would happen if a fourth party showed up to you?
Yeah, you can just run.
Right. So if you completely dip out of the situation, you're like, bye, I'm out. What happens to the other parties?
Yeah, I guess they fight each other.
Yeah. And then what can you
Yeah.
do?
Yeah, you can come back around.
Exactly. So the reason why this player Mondo was so successful is because every single time he would take a fight, he always saw every single situation, every single route where he could escape to. And every single time he would IGL to his teammates, oh, we gotta dip out this way. Oh, I feel a 3P coming. We gotta go this way, right? Or I feel like this fight's too hot. Like I feel like it's been going on for too long. So I feel like another 3P's coming. So we should take this position on this high ground where we're looking down on them and we have a way of getting out if we need to, right? So high ground is good in terms of the aspect of like finding those escape routes because you can just jump off of it. The idea of high ground, right? It's different for every situation. It's different for every high ground, obviously. But there are examples where it's just straight up a tower in the sky and you can just jump off and leave. Other examples being like Valk and Jibby, right? The old meta was you throw a Jibby bubble, Valk ult out. You're out of the fight. Nobody sees you anymore, right? Now you're thinking in the terms of like utilizing everything that's presented to you and given to you in this game and how you could take advantage of that to mitigate those losses where you're getting the repeat as yourself or fourth party or whatever you want to call it. So other aspects could be like mobility, right? So how could you use the mobility of your legends to escape the situations? What's an example that you could think of on the top of your head?
Yeah, I guess the zip line.
Yeah, zipline.
Yeah. I guess the Maggie ball or the Valkal.
Rate TP, Octane pad, right?
Right.
Now you're starting to understand the fundamental reasonings behind the reason why these characters have mobility kits and how you can utilize them. And now you start to think full dimensionally about every single aspect of the game, right? So now you start to take in everything and crunch it together and you figure out how you can kind of play these little fights here and there. So the things we're keeping track on the right side, right? We had 3 little fights going on. We can take every single little fight and make the most out of every single little fight. And those little fights will take up the entire perspective and make up into a giant big win, right? So you win the whole fight altogether.
Yeah.
Now
So
we
it's
look
just
at
like a
this.
game of. Yeah.
Now we look at this fight. You tell me when to stop and what do you think went wrong, and then when you feel like you saw a little fight.
Well,
so-
okay. If you stop like a few minutes before, like right here, like I don't know why I went back here. Like there, I mean, I think so. The reason, like in the moment, I can explain like my panic was just that. Look, there's still two guys on height.
Right.
I don't want to be out in the open. So I
Mm.
actually maybe it was not a bad call. Like just to get in cover and then reposition again. Um, yeah. Whereas I think honestly, the fight would have been faster over if I just pushed this right here instead of
Yeah.
falling back because they were
Exactly.
already very weak.
So you
So
still had an
yeah, I mean,
advantage,
I was
right?
playing
Yeah.
safe, but I didn't
Exactly.
have to play that safe. Yeah, like the advantage of being in cover was like not as big an advantage as I thought
Mhm.
as it would normally be
So I want to do
because
one
I
more
have a
thing
health
with you.
advantage. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
So I want to do one more thing with you. I'm gonna look at one more fight, and
Hmm.
we're gonna end it on this.
Sure.
But I want you to look through the fight, and you tell me what you would have done differently. I'm not gonna. You don't have
Okay.
to explain your process or thought process or anything. I mean, just
Okay.
naturalize the process that you're going through. The whole idea of disadvantages, advantages, kind of just crunch them all together into one thing, and just naturally look through the gameplay and go, "Oh, well, I should have done this. Oh, I should have done that. I shouldn't have done that."
Okay.
So we'll try and find a fight. Maybe there's off drop right here.
Yeah, I think one of them was definitely a hot drop.
Mhm.
And the hot drop situations are really like a good training ground for, I guess, this like micro advantage disadvantage
Right. Yeah.
thing.
Let
Yeah.
me. Yeah. Let me actually screen share with audio this time, so you can have the full
Sure.
picture, because we don't need the EpiPen anymore. Okay. Just close this, and then you just tell me what you would have done differently.
Okay. Yeah, I think this was a hot drop.
Mhm.
Yeah, there definitely there's like two teams. So I see on the radar there's like
Oh,
six
yeah. You can
other.
tell me to pause as well if you want to break it down.
Yeah, here. Okay. Wait, I'll pause for a second.
Mhm.
Okay, so like first I was checking to make sure where my teammates are because in this situation I want to make sure I'm near my teammates.
Right.
So that's an advantage, I guess. But honestly, it's more of a just a, it should be the default state.
Mhm.
Um, like it's not a disadvantage. Let's put it that way, I guess. Yeah.
Right.
And then disadvantage is I don't have a gun, so I need to get a gun, so that would give me advantage. Like in a hot drop situation, that could be a big advantage.
Mhm.
Because sometimes the other teams, like the faster you load out, um,
Mhm.
the seconds matter a lot more in general because you could have a gun before the other team does, or maybe you could have armor or something, so you could get the health advantage,
Right. And
or more
then
shields or more
yeah.
health or whatever. So you need to like
Yeah.
looting quickly. If you can loot quickly and push the other team first, that's an advantage.
Okay. And then I'll play through more of the fight. And you just give me your thoughts.
Yeah. Okay, stop. Pause. Pause. So here, I grappled up on height,
Mhm.
because I kind of saw that they landed on the other building. So I guess it's an advantage if I'm on height.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't know if it was really a big advantage because I don't have line of sight. So I guess it didn't matter.
Okay. So
Um,
yeah.
but if they peek that door on the other side, it might be an advantage because
Mm.
they're wholly exposed, and I have a lot of cover from the door and the height.
Okay.
I don't know what I do next, so I guess we'll see.
Nice
Oh, they are
damage.
over there. Okay, yeah, yeah. So that I guess yeah. Pause here. So yeah, when I run through here, I'm at a bigger disadvantage because I have no cover.
Mhm.
And yeah, I get okay. So I'll just explain why I pushed up because I saw the guy was like on low health, so I kind of was like, okay, we have like the health advantage here,
Mhm.
so let me try to push up and get a LOS on him. But
Mm.
but by pushing up, the problem is that I lose all my uh, I lose the cover advantage, and so then
Mm.
I expose myself here and get be pretty bad. And so now I'm at a disadvantage, and I have to reset that by like finding cover again.
Mm. Yeah. Okay.
So I think that's what I do. I run back,
Mhm.
and so now I try to fall back. I see that my teammates. I hear that they dropped one, so now we're okay. So let's pause here.
Mhm.
Okay, so when I ran back to reset, but at the point where I was in the middle of the building, running around,
Yeah.
I was not sure whether I should reset or because I heard shots, or should I go back and help my teammates? Because
Right.
if I went back, I would have had a flank on them because they were shooting from this door, and if I shot from where I was before, from cover, we might have had like a good line of sight on them. So I don't, but then so I was confused. Like, so there was not a disadvantage. I guess it was sort of a disadvantage, and I wasted time trying to figure out.
Hello? Oh, I think you may have.
But then what kind of answered the question for me was when I heard the enemy death sound.
Mhm.
Then I'm like, okay, we have an advantage. I can reset like comfortably. So that's what I do here.
Okay. So still gray area of whether disadvantage or advantage, do you think? Or do you know definitively?
Yeah, like I don't know. Because I only had I only lost one bar of shield. I guess. Well, I don't know if that. So I guess I might have. It was more risky because I didn't know where they were.
Mhm.
So if I peeked and they had a good line of sight on that door, when I ran through it originally,
Yeah.
they could have switched to me if there's more than one guy, and I would. Then they could have beaten me, and I would have been a big disadvantage or even dead. So I think um, the it was better that I didn't repeat, but I should have made that decision sooner.
Okay. We'll play through more of it and tell me your thoughts.
Havoc here. Recharging shields. Bogey here. Here out of mind.
Okay, stop here. Okay, so I grapple on the roof because I'm like, okay, well, there's only two guys left. They can't. I have another advantage is that they can't revive that teammate because we finished him. So it's definitely we don't have to worry about them like trying to circle back, other than to get a banner. So I went on the roof to gain the height advantage in case they go in the middle or pop out. They run out. They try to fall back, or run away.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, this was better because I didn't really think about it, but I guess this was good because if they're down one, the best option right now is to run away.
Okay.
Probably. So if you're on height, you can have a better LOS on them if they try to run away.
Okay. And then we'll
Yeah. So, but I'm not 100% sure if that's what they would do.
So would you quantify this as a
well,
3P?
Yeah. So actually, yeah. Well, okay. So this is the other kind of disadvantage. Really, is that I didn't. We were only fighting this one team, but we weren't thinking about the other team that also dropped. So I didn't know if they died. Did they run away because they saw two teams here, or were they still looting, or are they about to push us now?
Right. So that uncertainty that we talked
Yeah.
about earlier, right, with the fourth party.
Yeah. So I was just kind of only worrying about that one fight, and I wasn't worrying about the other. So that was a disadvantage of not knowing what the other team was up to.
Yeah. And then you wanted to break something down here, I think, right?
Yeah. Well, here, I definitely have an advantage on this guy because he's running out in the open. I don't, and here's the problem: is I don't know if he was with the existing team or the third team that dropped. So
yeah,
I guess, so potentially, I guess if we could be sandwiched in the middle between two, like a squad of two that so we dropped one, the squad we were fighting, so there'd be two guys on that team, and then three guys on this team, and if that squad of two ran behind us, we'd be in the middle and we'd have a big disadvantage. We'd be like the third party. So in this case, it's kind of like, so being up here might have been a disadvantage because if the other squad that we were fighting push us again, and we're fighting this team, we could easily die here very quickly.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So and I think to gain the advantage here, we should probably, like you said, like reposition um, to make sure, like, have the escape route to make sure that if the other team comes, we don't worry. But yeah, see, I think this is the. I'm not sure, and this is the other problem. I'm not sure if this was from the third team or the original team we fought.
Right. So it's still
I would imagine
uncertainty.
yeah, and I would assume it would be from the original team because they would probably want to get the banner or something. I'm not sure, but yeah, maybe not.
Mhm.
So the certainty is still in a disadvantage here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this. Okay.
Charging on my
Can you just
shield.
tell me whenever to pause?
So here, pause. Like this was, I didn't. So disadvantage is I was at cover, but the advantage is that it was just a 3v1. So we had a huge advantage. So the cover doesn't matter. You can. I was kind of
Okay.
yeah, just aping this.
Good.
Reloading.
But I guess the other thing is there's still uncertainty of where his teammates are. Because if the teammate rolled up, I might have been.
Right.
It might have been a bad situation. But I guess that was kind of a calculated risk. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, we can end it here because it's kind of a long
Yeah, yeah.
fight. But we'll break it down.
Yeah, yeah.
So let me try and screen share my notepad. So it's kind of sporadic, but hopefully it's legible enough.
Yep.
But this is what I got down. And you'll notice that on every point, or at least I try to put on every point while you're talking, how to optimize every single one, right? So while these may exist as disadvantages or advantages, you're still thinking about how to turn it into a disadvantage or advantage, or an advantage, not a disadvantage, and how you can optimize that advantage into a higher advantage, right? So the first thing we saw was when you landed and you said you were staying together, and that was an advantage or a disadvantage. How could you optimize that?
Well, I mean, by optimizing it, you just land together, right?
So would that be a disadvantage or advantage, do you think?
Well, it's an advantage in the sense that you won't be caught out alone against another team. So
Okay.
it wouldn't be a 3v1. It's a
And how would it be a
disadvantage because
disadvantage? Yeah.
yeah, because like we're all in the same loot area, so we're all
Right,
fighting
yeah.
for the same loot.
Okay. And then you can optimize that. How do you think?
I mean, I guess you only take one gun, I guess, and let your teammates have others. So you're not kind of spreading the loot thinner, but at least everybody's armed or whatever.
Okay. Would you say that
Or
getting your own? Yeah.
or you can run together and then just keep looting
Yeah, that works.
as a team.
So let's think in the bigger picture, right?
Mhm.
What can you do just off the ship as soon as you're dropping? What controllable variables do you have?
I guess you can see where the enemies are.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
why would you leave one area unlooted when you can spread out if you know exactly where everyone is as they're dropping?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you could actually go to like a different area as long
entirely. Yeah.
as you have the you know that they're not going to be there. But
Exactly.
in that case, sometimes they might see that and decide that they're going to push you if you're off on your own.
And then how do you optimize that?
Well, you just make sure you have an escape from there if you
Exactly.
need.
So you can
Yeah.
land on the other side where you can run back to your teammates, right?
Yeah.
Stuff
yeah,
like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Uh,
Looting.
yeah.
You said having looters is an advantage, but how can you control that in the definitive where you're always at that advantage of having a loot?
I guess you drop in the POIs that have the good loot, or you drop
Yeah.
on top. Yeah, you always drop in the POIs that have good loot. It's a disadvantage because the other teams might also do the same thing.
Yeah, so you could learn how good the loot in a certain building is by dropping on it over and over, or watching other people, or watching, looking up your own resources, right? So like statistics of the density of loot in this one POI, or the density of loot in this one building, right? There's graphs for like that everywhere, but I don't know how updated they are because they kind of change it here and there. But
Yeah.
the easiest way you can do that is just drop on that same POI over and over and over again, so you can learn what the good buildings are and what the bad buildings are, right? You said you grappled onto high ground, which is a middle thing, right? The little middle platform where you said you were looking for LOS. So
Yeah.
you said you were unsure if it was an advantage, but how could you optimize it as well? So this is where you beam them on the middle pills.
Oh, you mean wait? So this was So when I grappled up on the roof, and then I saw one guy off in the distance
Oh no no
running, and
no!
I was
Before that, before that. So this is where
oh, I see.
yeah,
Yeah.
before you
Um,
dropped off, and then you got put like you were
yeah.
open in the middle. Yeah.
So what was the question? What could I
How is
what
that?
could I have done?
Yeah. So is it an advantage, disadvantage? How can you optimize it?
Well, it was an advantage because I had line of sight on the
Mm-hmm.
entrance to their building,
You
and
had
they
cover.
didn't have.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had cover. Um,
So it's an
I,
advantage. We know that for sure.
yes.
How do you
I
optimize it?
guess it.
Remember, so the tactic I want you to do is think big picture and then small picture.
Mhm.
Because then going from small to big is pretty hard.
Oh, okay. So,
Big picture, how do you optimize it?
actually, I think honestly, big picture is not even on that roof. Just get on the roof instead of
Yeah,
on that ledge.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Perfect. Yeah. So by getting on that roof, that variable is completely gone. Now you have the absolute advantage, right?
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So while there were
Okay.
two advantages existing, right? Two positions.
hmm
One was significantly better, but it was just hard to see
hmm
that significantly better position until you thought outside of the box. Big picture first and then small,
Yeah,
right? So then running to the
yeah.
low ground, you said disadvantage, no cover. I agree. Pushing to get LOS. How do I optimize it? So how do you optimize getting LOS there?
You basically want to reduce the line of sight they have on you, but
Mm-hmm.
maximize the line of sight you have on them. And then
Right.
also make sure that your line of sight. So if your teammates have a particular line of sight, you don't want to generally don't want to have the same line of sight. You want to have another one.
Exactly. And if you're on the roof in the first place, you know this
Yeah, you
variable
have
wouldn't
all of the
exist,
line of
right?
sight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
So you said getting back to cover. So when you said, "Oh, I left the middle part and I went back to cover," and you were unsure if it was a disadvantage or advantage because the middle part was kind of open, you couldn't see if they were pushing or not, but you just wanted to get back to your teammates, right? Is it
Yeah.
disadvantage or advantage? How do you optimize it?
Yeah. I mean, I think it was an absolute disadvantage because I mean, if I had thought about what they were going to do, they're going to be peeking from there
Right.
to get a line of sight on us. So me being in the open in their line of sight is bad. So I would never want to do
Exactly.
that. I would
Exactly.
probably probably a better way instead of just going out running out like that in the open, actually going around. Uh, not go through that door, but go left around, maybe that up, and then try to get a flank on them from the left side,
Right.
or get back
So
on the roof or
that's called
something.
an off
Yeah,
angle, right? So
yeah.
you just drew another concept out of thin air again. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how you optimize it, right? So now the second part
Yep.
was you grapple on the roof. That was after you reset and you wanted to see and gauge the situation. And then you stated that two guys were left. You can't revive. They can't revive them because there's a finish. They might
Mm-hmm.
go for banner. Is the best
Mm-hmm.
option to run away? How do you optimize it? What are you looking for?
Well, I guess I would want to. Well, you could. I guess you could camp the banner and then just
Mm,
and get a line of sight to see which. Because so figure out which way they would come to get the banner, and then just get a LOS,
right.
so that you can watch for them to get the banner.
There's still two
Um,
teams fighting though, right?
yeah, that was the other thing. There's a third team there, but it sounded like so. This is. I guess this was a disadvantage. I didn't know. I didn't have a clear understanding of
Mm.
the teams and where they were. So like.
So yeah, go ahead.
There was a team fighting in the other building, but I'm like, I thought there was only three teams. So if we're fighting one, and I heard gunshots in the other building, does that mean that team we're fighting ran and we're fighting the other team, or was there a fourth team? Like I that was kind of confusing to me.
So how
Um,
could you optimize that level of game sense? How could you game that missing piece of the puzzle? Think big picture and then
uh,
small.
yeah, I guess when you drop it, you can make
Yeah,
sure to see all of the teams there. All I did was look at
exactly.
the radar and just saw um,
Exactly. Yeah.
the red arrows. But if I looked around, there might have been. Because when I looked at the radar, I thought I only saw two groups of red arrows, so I thought there were two teams. But maybe if like as we were dropping, I looked around more, I maybe would have noticed another team because maybe they dropped early and I didn't see the arrows on the mini map by the time we dropped, or they dropped late and so I
Right.
didn't see it
Yeah.
there either.
So
Yeah.
isn't that crazy how something you do before you even get into the game could influence something so late into the game?
Yeah, for sure. So I
Yeah,
guess in order to do that, you always have to make sure you're always looking around,
exactly.
and then listening for any squad drop sounds too after.
So now we're at the point where
Yeah.
you see the rat who's kind of straight off from his team, right? But you're
Mhm.
not sure if it's a part of the other squad that was a full squad that you weren't fighting, or it was a part of the
Mhm.
squad where there were two people up and one of them was finished.
Yeah, but now I think about it, I couldn't have been part of the squad we fought because it would be stupid for them to like go to the other building where the other team was. I would
Mm.
imagine that they'd run away from both of our teams. So the
So
fact
big
that they would
picture.
be, yeah.
Yeah, how do you optimize that? How do you gain that knowledge, that missing piece?
Um,
Think outside of the
I guess you could,
box. Yeah.
yeah. Um, I guess you could like, I could grapple onto the roof of the building and then see like who's fighting there. I just gain more knowledge about who's fighting there.
That's still a little
Uh,
bit little picture, like smaller detail.
mhm.
What's like bigger, like outside the box, something that you wouldn't do in the fight, but something that you can control outside of it. That would give you that missing advantage or that missing piece. So remember, the problem here is you don't know what that person is like I'm part of, like what team it's part of.
Yeah.
How do you figure that out? The big picture.
Mm,
And again, it's the solution is always simpler than you think it is because it's hard to go from
mhm.
small to big.
Well, you definitely know it. Look, so it's not. Well, yeah, it's a good question. I mean, the way when I saw that one guy run out, it felt like
Mm-hmm.
he was part of. He was either. It looked like he was either because if he was running out, he's clearly at a disadvantage. So he either is alone or his teammates are dead. Um,
Mm. Let me give you a
yeah,
little hint. What
yeah,
character was he?
a wraith, I think. I
And
think so.
then
Yeah, I
how
think
would that help you?
Um.
What team
Well,
did
yeah.
you
So
just fight?
usually, yeah. I guess you have to know the characters on the team that you're
Right.
fighting, like what they are.
But what
Yeah.
happens if they both have race? How do you distinguish the two?
Uh, I guess the skin there. I don't know.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, you
Oh
could do it
yeah, is
off of the
it?
skin they're using. Yeah.
Okay,
There's
interesting.
also other inferences clues that you could use, right? So what else can you use? You said they got one knock and one finish, right?
You mean the other team or
Well, the
we
team that you
us?
use when you're on the roof and you're like, oh, there's two guys left, can't revive one because one of them got finished.
Yeah.
So what
Um,
context clue could you use that you drew from that context clue? Like, how did you get that context clue in the first place? And how could you use that same exact tool to get an advantage?
like what you mean in terms of the fact that we know that we
Think
finished
big
the
picture.
guy. Hmm.
So what system did you use to figure out that they had two guys left and one of them was finished?
Well, because we killed one and we finished one, so that's the
Mm.
right. Oh, I guess you can use the kill feed.
Yeah, kill feed.
Yeah.
But what else can you draw from the kill feed? It's not just a simple tool, right? You can draw
I
many
guess
things from it.
right, like what the character they are. Can
Not
you?
really necessarily. I mean,
No.
sometimes if you see their ability finish,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah,
Oh, you can look at the boxes. I guess.
yeah, that's one of them. You can look at the boxes, right? You finish when you can see the box, right, from range.
Yeah.
What's another
So
method? So the kill
yeah.
feed.
I mean, you can just listen to the audio, I guess. I
Yeah.
don't know.
So what can you
Yeah.
draw? Yeah. Conclusion
Like
wise,
what's
what can you
up?
correlate?
Well, if they're fighting, yeah, like if they're fighting, they'll be. I guess they're. You'll hear this. I mean, if well, I don't know. I don't know if the audio is. I mean, I don't know. Can you hear a knock? Yeah, I think you can,
You
right?
can,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's kind
If
of
you're
a
close enough,
distance. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So let's think bigger picture, right? Out of the box. What does a kill feed show? Every detail of it, like explain to me. Typically, what does it show?
Oh yeah, it shows the player how they kill the opponent and then the opponent's name.
Right. Does that all they show? I think it shows one more thing, right?
Oh, knocks and finishes, I guess.
Well,
Oh,
if someone gets Kraber headshot, how do you know they got Kraber headshot?
oh, it shows like the headshot.
Yeah. So you can kind of draw
Yeah.
inferences based on the audio, the kill feed,
Mhm.
and then connect the two and go, oh, that got Kraber headshot, right? Because
Mhm.
you see a headshot, you see the down symbol, you see they got instant knocked. You hear one Kraber
Mhm.
shot, you draw the inference between the two, right?
hmm
So you can correlate two data together. So if you see one person getting knocked, you hear a volt shooting, then you go, okay, whoever has a volt is on this team that just knocked them, right?
hmm
So now you're connecting
Okay.
two pictures together. You're building the picture, you're building the puzzle piece, all by one, right?
Right.
So using
So it's like,
everything you possibly can. Yeah.
yeah, you can hear. Okay, so you can look at the kill feed. You can hear the, I guess the guns being shot, and like, okay, the if they got knocked and I heard that weapon in that building, then clearly, um, there's one team is winning. I guess it's one way to
Yeah. And
figure
what
it
can you
out.
draw in terms of like positioning wise from the audio? You can figure out where they are based on where they're shooting, right? Because the
Right.
volt
So
person is shooting. Yeah, exactly.
so
Go
you
ahead.
can like kind of figure out where both teams are and what they're
Exactly.
doing. Yeah.
So you don't even have LOS with them. You did absolutely nothing. But you just looked at the kill feed and used your brain a little. And then what did you figure out?
Like who's fighting and what the guns they're using and who's winning and losing.
Exactly. So you figured out the entire situation as if you have wall hacks yourself by just using inference clues, right? Piecing the pictures
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's how game sense works. It seems very complex by nature, but is very simple once you put it into practice. And you're like, oh, that's how it works, right? So now we get to the simple last 2 points, like uncertainty of path, disadvantage. How do you optimize knowing the path is there?
The path of what?
The pathfinder. So when you like drop down and you're like, oh shit, there's a pathfinder here.
How do I optimize the? Yeah. Okay.
Knowing
Yeah.
him.
There.
Yeah.
No. Oh, knowing that he's there.
Yeah. I mean, whatever you want to just ramble on about, just give me something. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so basically, yeah. So I know my teammates are already. They have LOS, or at least, well, let me think. Did they have LOS? Yeah, they were already shooting at him, so I already knew that they had LOS, or at least they did.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So, and all I saw was one Pathfinder. I didn't see anybody else,
Right.
which is
So
kind
now-
of dangerous
yeah.
because that's not always the case. Like, there could be somebody there; they're just in cover or something, and I didn't see them. So,
Right. So now you're piecing the puzzle pieces together. Still, at this point, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think at that point where I saw him, I was above him actually. So and my teammates were below him and they had LOS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we were in a really good position. And
Exactly.
the moment I dropped, I exposed myself pretty bad to if there was other teammates there.
Right. You even the playing field, but the interesting thing is you still had an advantage because you're up 2. So I mean, technically you still had that advantage, but there's a risk of your teammates failing on their duty and then them losing and then you getting down in the process.
Yeah.
So the only variable you can control, which is not your teammates by the way, but you, is now out of the picture, right?
Yeah.
Now the last one, disadvantage out of cover on path when you drop down, but advantage on we already talked about that.
Yeah.
So we went from the beginning of the session, which is kind of drawn out, so that's my bad. But the beginning of the session where we talked about what do you think went wrong, how do you improve, what do you do that, and you said I don't know, right? So you genuinely do not know. How do you know, right? And you said looking for assistance, right? Which I agree with. Getting that assistance definitely does help, right? But in the future, how would you go about without even my help, figuring out your own problems? How are you going to go about fixing your own problems, and how are you going to notice these problems? Do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll do this whole micro macro level advantage versus disadvantage.
Right, exactly.
And then just be like, what would have given me more of an advantage or reduced my disadvantage?
Right.
or reduce the enemy's advantage and increase their disadvantage.
The funny thing
Um,
is, this entire session, the only thing I was teaching you was flowchart-like thinking. One concept I explained to you over the span of like close to 2 hours, right?
yeah, I think there still was a couple places where I had trouble with it.
Mhm.
But I think that's where your
Right.
your like feedback was helpful to like kind of hone in on it,
Right,
like what
exactly.
like how to figure out the teams and what they're doing like
Yeah.
that. But yeah, I didn't really think about the kill feed thing at all, but that makes a lot of sense.
Right. So now you're
Yeah,
thinking in the bigger picture, right? So now going
yeah.
forward, you're gonna constantly think about the big picture. What else are you gonna
hmm
do?
Yeah, the big picture, and then I guess do this whole advantage disadvantage
Hmm.
um, calculation, and then uh, implement that when I'm actually in the fight, like
Yeah. So
kind of
how
think
would
about
you
it a little bit
implement
more.
that in a live fight? Do you think?
I would think about like what would give me like what's the best way to gain an advantage and reduce my
Mm.
disadvantage.
So
Um,
let me put it this way: it doesn't matter if you don't calculate every single variable, right, or account for every single
mhm,
variable in a live fight, right?
mhm.
Why is that?
Why does it matter if I don't calculate every single variable?
Yeah. Why?
Um,
Why doesn't it matter if you don't?
well,
Because
I
what will you do
guess
afterwards?
yeah, you'll review the VOD and then be able to do it.
Yeah.
You can do
Exactly.
it after. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So even if you
Also,
fail the
even if you
fight,
make a
yeah,
bad decision in the middle of the fight, you can
hmm
recalculate all of the variables again, like kind of
exactly.
quickly.
And then
Yeah,
now what
yeah,
happens the
yeah.
next time you come around the fight? You know exactly what to do, right?
All right, 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 right.
So now this is teaching you don't be scared of failure, look to
Mm-hmm.
improve in this aspect of failing, learn to improve, and you're kind of encompassing the whole idea of flowchart like thinking, right? So constantly asking
Yeah.
yourself questions and the idea and the framework of what are advantages, disadvantages, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I hope what I taught you helps you out. If you have any questions, just DM me and I'll gladly answer them if I can. And
Yeah, no, this was actually like very useful.
yeah,
I think this is the issue is that like yeah, a lot of times I'm just completely confused as what happened, but this is good
right.
framework.
Yeah. And that tends to be for a
Um,
lot of people anyways, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I guess I mean maybe a good idea would be me to have keep getting these VODs and then doing it in my head and then maybe book another session with you and be like, this is what I thought, and is this
Mm.
like kind of kind of getting feedback on the meta process of doing this, I
Yeah, so
guess.
yeah,
Yeah.
I would actually advise you to come back a little bit later, so like 2 to 3 months, right? If you do
Okay.
intend to come back, that way you have
Yeah.
some time to work and implement a lot of things that I taught you, and that way you
hmm
can come back to me and be like, okay, I encountered these problems when I was trying to develop this, and I'm
hmm
noticing that I'm improving in these aspects, and we can kind of go all over it again.
Yeah. This
Yeah.
sounds good, man.
So it's great talking to you. I hope you have a nice day. I hope what I
Yeah.
taught you
You
helps
too.
you out in the future, and I'll catch you later, man.
All right. Later. Bye.
Peace.